Hello, welcome to the worldwarlab channel. Today's story takes us to one of the most brutal and unforgiving battlefields of the Pacific War. At 7:30 in the morning on September 18, 1944, Private First Class Andrew Art Jackson pressed his body flat against a jagged coral outcrop on Peleliu Island. From his position, he watched Japanese machine gun fire rip through the Marines pinned down to his left. He was 19 years old. He had been on this island for 3 days. He had 0 confirmed kills. The Japanese defenders had constructed 12 reinforced concrete pillboxes in a wide half-moon arc across the southern peninsula. Each of these positions housed anywhere from 5 to as many as 35 enemy soldiers. 3 days earlier, the 1st Marine Division had landed on Peleliu believing it would be a quick, 4-day operation. Major General William Rupertus had confidently told his men they would secure the island by the weekend. That estimate would prove disastrously wrong by 70 days. On D-Day alone, nearly 1,300 Marines were killed or wounded on the beaches. The Japanese had abandoned their old tactics. There were no more banzai charges. No more suicidal rushes into American machine gun fire. Instead, Colonel Kunio Nakagawa had transformed the island into a fortress. His force of roughly 10,000 defenders waited underground, hidden in caves and concrete bunkers connected by more than 500 yards of tunnels. They allowed the Americans to come to them, step by step, and die trying. By September 18th, the 1st Marine Regiment had suffered 70% casualties. 7 out of every 10 Marines who had landed with that regiment were either dead or wounded. The 7th Marines, Jackson's regiment, had been pushed into the southern sector. Their mission sounded simple on paper: eliminate the Japanese defensive positions blocking the advance toward the airfield. In reality, it was nearly impossible. The problem was the pillboxes. Japanese engineers had carved them directly into the coral ridges, reinforcing them with concrete walls 3 feet thick. Each pillbox was designed with overlapping fields of fire that covered its neighbors. If Marines attacked one position, 2 more would immediately rake them from the flanks. The Marines tried grenades. The grenades bounced harmlessly off the concrete. They tried rifle fire. The bullets sparked and ricocheted, shattering coral instead of penetrating the walls. They tried rushing the firing slits. Bodies piled up in front of the concrete openings. That morning, Jackson's platoon had advanced barely 200 yards before the left flank stalled completely. A massive pillbox dominated the approach. Every time a Marine moved, that pillbox opened fire. The platoon could not advance, and retreat was just as deadly. 3 men had already been killed attempting to find a way around it. The standard Marine Corps solution was to call in tanks or artillery. On Peleliu, neither option worked. The coral ridges in this sector were too steep, the approaches too narrow for tanks to maneuver. Artillery couldn't be used without killing the Marines trapped directly in front of the bunker. Someone had to cross 150 yards of open ground, reach the pillbox, and destroy it at close range. The Japanese inside would see anyone coming. They had machine guns. They had rifles. They had grenades. The math was merciless. A man sprinting across open ground under combat conditions moves at roughly 15 yards per second. 150 yards meant 10 full seconds of exposure. The Japanese Type 92 machine gun fired about 450 rounds per minute. In 10 seconds, a single gun could pour 75 bullets into that open kill zone. The pillbox had at least 2 machine guns. No Marine should have been able to survive that run. The officers knew it. The sergeants knew it. Jackson knew it. But Jackson also knew something else. Every minute his platoon remained pinned down, more men would die. If the left flank didn't move, the entire advance would collapse. Waiting for a solution that might never arrive was simply another way of dying. If you want to see how Jackson's impossible assault turned out, please hit that like button. Every like helps this story reach more viewers. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. Now back to Jackson. Jackson pulled a fresh 20-round magazine and locked it into his Browning automatic rifle. He crammed his pockets with as many grenades as he could carry. Then he looked out across 150 yards of open coral separating him from roughly 35 Japanese soldiers. The morning sun beat down on Peleliu. The temperature was already climbing past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And at 19 years old, Andrew Jackson had just decided to attempt something that should not have been possible. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't ask his sergeant. He didn't coordinate with the Marines on his right. He simply stood up and ran. The Browning automatic rifle weighed nearly 19 pounds fully loaded. Jackson carried it at hip level as he sprinted across the coral. The bar fired .30 caliber rounds at a rate of about 550 per minute. Fired from the hip, it wasn't accurate, but accuracy wasn't the goal. Volume was. Suppression was. The Japanese in the pillbox spotted him instantly. Their Type 92 machine guns swung toward the lone running Marine. Bullets cracked past Jackson's head. Coral fragments exploded around his boots. The air filled with the harsh roar of Japanese automatic weapons. Jackson fired back without breaking stride. He held the bar's trigger down and swept the muzzle across the pillbox's firing slit. His bullets couldn't punch through 3 feet of reinforced concrete, but they forced the gunners to duck. They bought him seconds, and seconds were all he needed. The distance closed rapidly. 100 yards. 80. 60. Jackson's magazine ran dry. He dove behind a coral boulder, slammed in a fresh magazine, and sprinted forward again. The Japanese gunners recovered and intensified their fire. Bullets kicked up clouds of coral dust inches from his feet. 40 yards. 30. 20. At close range, the very design of the pillbox turned against its defenders. The firing slits that gave the Japanese such deadly fields of fire also restricted their angles. Jackson reached a blind spot directly beside the main aperture. The soldiers inside could hear him moving. They could not shoot him. Jackson hadn't filled his pockets with ammunition alone. He carried white phosphorus grenades. He carried fragmentation grenades. And another Marine, charging behind him, carried something even more dangerous. 40 pounds of plastic explosive. White phosphorus burns at roughly 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It ignites on contact with air and cannot be extinguished with water. Jackson pulled the pin on his first phosphorus grenade and shoved it straight through the firing slit. The screaming began instantly. Japanese soldiers staggered out of the pillbox with their uniforms engulfed in flames. Ammunition belts around their waists began to cook off, rounds detonating in violent bursts. Jackson shot them as they emerged. His bar cut them down before they could even raise their weapons. But 35 men occupied that pillbox. Phosphorus alone would not be enough to kill them all. Some of the defenders had retreated deeper into the structure. Others were already firing back through secondary apertures. Jackson grabbed the explosive charges. 40 pounds of composition C, 2 plastic explosive. He had a 30-second time fuse. He would get only one chance to place it correctly. He shoved the entire bundle through the main firing slit and turned to run. Jackson dove into a shell crater and curled into a tight fetal position. He covered his head with his arms and pressed his body flat against the coral. The explosion ripped the pillbox off its foundation. Concrete slabs, timber, and human remains blasted 60 feet into the air. The shockwave slammed into Jackson's crater, driving the breath from his lungs. Debris rained down around him. A chunk of concrete the size of a football landed just inches from his head. When the dust finally settled, the pillbox was gone. 35 Japanese soldiers were dead. Jackson stood up slowly. His ears rang. His hands shook uncontrollably, but he was alive. And 200 yards ahead, 11 more pillboxes were still pouring fire into the Marine lines. The logical thing to do was to return to his platoon, report success, and let someone else deal with the remaining positions. Jackson did not do the logical thing. He reloaded his bar, checked what grenades he had left, and began walking toward the next pillbox. The second pillbox sat roughly 80 yards northwest of the first. It was smaller, with 5 Japanese soldiers inside and 2 machine guns covering the approach. Jackson had lost the element of surprise. The Japanese in the remaining 11 positions had heard the explosion. They had watched their largest bunker vanish in a column of smoke, fire, and debris. They knew an American was coming. Jackson used the terrain to his advantage. Peleliu's coral ridges formed natural channels between defensive positions. A man who knew how to read the ground could move from cover to cover without exposing himself to more than one pillbox at a time. Jackson had spent 3 days watching how the Japanese defensive network functioned. He understood where their blind spots were. He approached the second bunker from its eastern flank, where jagged coral formations blocked the angle of the firing slits. He crawled the final 30 yards on his belly, dragging his bar through the sharp volcanic rock. The Japanese inside heard him. They could not see him. Grenades began flying blindly over the bunker wall. Japanese Type 97 grenades had a 4-second fuse. Jackson counted the blasts, waited for the brief pause between throws, then moved. He reached the bunker wall and pressed his back against the concrete. His white phosphorus grenades were gone. He had used them all on the first position. But he still had fragmentation grenades. He still had his bar. And he had learned something during his first assault. Japanese pillboxes were built with ventilation shafts, small openings in the roof designed to prevent carbon monoxide buildup from sustained weapons fire. The shafts were only 4 inches wide, too small to drop a grenade through, but wide enough for a rifle barrel. Jackson climbed onto the bunker roof and found the shaft. He shoved the muzzle of his bar into the opening and emptied an entire magazine straight down. The .30 caliber rounds ricocheted violently inside the concrete chamber. Japanese soldiers died where they stood. Jackson reloaded and fired again, sending 20 more rounds into the darkness below. When he dropped back to the ground, there was no movement inside the bunker. 2 pillboxes destroyed. 10 remaining. The third and fourth positions were built close together, designed to support each other. Each bunker covered the approach to the other. This was standard Japanese defensive doctrine. Let your neighbor kill the men attacking you. Jackson couldn't assault one without being cut down by the other. He solved the problem with geometry. Both bunkers faced southwest toward the Marine lines. Their firing slits covered a 120-degree arc. But directly between them, there was a narrow corridor where neither bunker could bring its weapons to bear. The corridor was only 8 feet wide. A man would have to run through it perfectly straight or be torn apart from one side or the other. Jackson sprinted down the corridor at full speed. He reached the third bunker before its defenders could reposition their guns. He jammed his bar into the firing slit and fired until the magazine ran dry. Then he hurled his last fragmentation grenade through the opening. Without stopping, he moved to the fourth bunker and repeated the process. 4 pillboxes destroyed. Approximately 55 Japanese soldiers dead. Jackson had been fighting for less than 20 minutes. His ammunition was running low. His bar had jammed twice from overheating. The barrel was so hot it burned his hands through the wooden foregrip. He had no grenades left. No explosives. A logical man would have stopped, fallen back, and resupplied. Jackson didn't. During his assault on the fourth bunker, he had seen something through the smoke and dust. Marines from his platoon were beginning to move forward. His attack was working. The left flank was advancing. If he stopped now, the remaining 8 pillboxes would pin those Marines down exactly the way his platoon had been pinned an hour earlier. More men would die in front of those concrete walls. Jackson checked his remaining ammunition. 3 magazines. 60 rounds. 8 bunkers still active. The math no longer made any sense, but Jackson moved forward anyway. The 5th pillbox was different. It was larger than the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, though not as massive as the first. It had something the others lacked, a rear entrance. Japanese engineers had adapted to American tactics. Marines preferred to assault bunkers from the flanks, where firing slits couldn't reach them. So the engineers built escape routes, tunnels connecting pillboxes to rear trenches. If Americans attacked from one direction, the defenders could withdraw, reposition, and counterattack. Jackson didn't know about the tunnel. He approached the fifth bunker using the same method that had worked before. Find the blind spot. Close the distance. Kill everyone inside. He reached the bunker wall and pressed his back against the concrete, preparing to climb onto the roof and locate the ventilation shaft. A Japanese soldier erupted from the ground 5 yards behind him. The rear tunnel exit was camouflaged with coral rocks and palm fronds. Jackson had walked straight past it. The soldier emerged with a bayonet fixed to his Arisaka rifle and lunged toward Jackson's back. Jackson spun and fired from the hip. The bar's .30 caliber rounds slammed into the soldier's chest. The man collapsed backward into his own tunnel entrance. But the noise had alerted the defenders inside the bunker. Jackson heard shouting. He heard boots pounding on concrete. He had only seconds before more soldiers came through that tunnel. Jackson dropped to one knee and fired straight into the tunnel. Entrance. The narrow passage funneled his fire. Anyone inside was hit directly. Jackson burned through an entire magazine in 4 seconds, slammed in his second-to-last magazine, and kept firing. When the shooting finally stopped, 3 Japanese soldiers lay dead inside the tunnel. The 5th pillbox went silent. 5 destroyed. 7 still active. But Jackson's situation had changed. The Japanese in the remaining positions now knew exactly where he was. They understood his methods, and they had radios. Colonel Nakagawa had established a communication network across Peleliu's defensive system. Each bunker could report to a central command post. That command post could coordinate counterattacks, redirect fire, and move reinforcements where they were needed most. Jackson didn't know that runners were already moving through the Japanese tunnel network. He didn't know that Nakagawa's officers had identified the single American systematically tearing apart their southern perimeter. He didn't know that the remaining 7 pillboxes had been ordered to concentrate their fire on one target. What Jackson did know was simpler. He could hear Marines advancing on his right. He heard rifle fire. He heard sergeants shouting commands. His assault had shattered the cohesion of the defensive line. The Japanese were no longer controlling the fight. They were reacting to it. The 6th pillbox sat on elevated ground, perched on a coral ridge roughly 15 feet higher than the surrounding terrain. The position gave its defenders clear visibility. They could see Jackson approaching from 200 yards away. There was no way to sneak up on this one. There was no blind spot. The Japanese had clear lines of fire in every direction. Jackson checked his weapon. 1 magazine left. 20 rounds. A Marine rifle squad appeared on Jackson's right. 6 men who had pushed through the gap he had created. Their sergeant saw Jackson crouched behind a coral boulder, saw the elevated bunker, saw the impossible geometry of the approach. He didn't issue orders or try to coordinate. He simply pointed at the bunker and led his men forward. 6 Marines and Jackson attacked at the same time from 2 directions. The Japanese gunners couldn't cover both approaches. They chose to fire on the larger threat, the rifle squad. While the defenders focused on them, Jackson reached the bunker. He climbed the coral ridge from its blind side, found the ventilation shaft, and shoved his bar into the opening. 20 rounds. His final magazine. He made every shot count. The 6th pillbox fell silent. The rifle squad had taken casualties. 2 wounded, 1 dead. But they were still moving, still fighting. Jackson looked down at his empty weapon, then at the 6 remaining pillboxes ahead. He needed ammunition. He needed grenades. He needed help. For the first time since his assault began, Arthur Jackson was no longer alone. The Japanese response came quickly. Colonel Nakagawa's command post had tracked the destruction of 6 defensive positions in less than 30 minutes. A single American had killed roughly 60 soldiers. The southern perimeter was collapsing. Nakagawa faced a critical tactical problem. His defensive doctrine depended on interlocking fields of fire, with each pillbox protecting the others. Remove one position and the system weakened. Remove 6, and gaps opened wide enough for entire Marine platoons to pour through. The colonel ordered a counterattack. 40 soldiers from his reserve company were dispatched. Their mission was simple: seal the breach, kill the Marine responsible, and restore the defensive line. Jackson had no idea reinforcements were coming. He was busy scavenging ammunition from the dead. Japanese Arisaka rifles used different ammunition than his bar, making them useless to him. But Japanese soldiers also carried grenades. Jackson collected 7 Type 97 fragmentation grenades from the bodies around the 6th pillbox. He also found 2 Type 99 magnetic mines, designed for use against tanks. He couldn't find additional bar magazines, but near the 3rd bunker he found a fallen Marine's M1 Garand. The rifle held 8 rounds of .30 caliber ammunition, the same caliber as his bar. Jackson improvised. He stripped rounds from the Garand's clips and hand-loaded them one by one into his empty bar magazines. It was slow, tedious work, but it gave him 40 rounds. 2 full magazines. The rifle squad that had helped take the 6th pillbox was reorganizing. Their sergeant had been wounded in the shoulder but was still functional, still issuing orders through hand signals. The squad had lost 1 man killed and 2 wounded. 3 Marines remained combat effective. Jackson and the 3 Marines prepared to assault the 7th pillbox when the Japanese counterattack hit. 40 soldiers emerged from a tunnel entrance 200 yards to the north. They advanced in 2 columns. There were no banzai charges, no screaming. Just disciplined infantry moving through the coral ridges with rifles ready. The Marines spotted them first. The squad's bar gunner opened fire, but his weapon jammed after 3 rounds, coral dust clogging the action. He dropped behind cover and worked frantically to clear the stoppage. Jackson stepped into the gap. He braced his bar against a coral outcrop and fired controlled bursts. 5 rounds. 5 rounds. He couldn't afford to waste ammunition. Every bullet had to count. The Japanese formation broke apart. Some soldiers dove behind rocks. Others kept advancing, trying to close the distance. Their return fire intensified. Bullets snapped overhead. Coral fragments sprayed across Jackson's face. The 3 Marines joined in, firing their Garands with deliberate aim. 8-round clips emptied quickly, the sharp metallic ping of ejected clips cutting through the noise. Japanese soldiers fell. 15. But more kept coming. They had numbers. They had discipline. And they had orders to retake this ground at any cost. Jackson's first magazine ran dry. He reloaded his final 20 rounds. The Marines were down to their last clips. The squad's bar gunner had cleared his jam but had only 1 magazine left. The numbers turned against them again. 4 Americans with perhaps 60 rounds between them, facing 25 Japanese soldiers still advancing. Then the coral ridge behind the Japanese erupted in explosions. The 7th Marines had pushed 3 rifle platoons through the gaps Jackson had created. 40 Marines armed with rifles, bars, and grenades had maneuvered around the counterattack force. They had circled behind the Japanese and waited for the right moment. That moment was now. The Japanese suddenly found themselves trapped between 2 American forces. Jackson and 3 Marines in front of them, 40 Marines behind. The crossfire was catastrophic. Japanese soldiers dropped in clusters. Some tried to flee back toward their tunnel entrance, but Marines cut them down before they could reach it. In less than 3 minutes, the counterattack was finished. 40 Japanese soldiers lay dead across the coral. The southern perimeter's last reserve was gone. 6 pillboxes remained. And now Jackson had ammunition. He had grenades. He had 40 Marines ready to follow him into the final defenses. The largest bunker complex on the southern peninsula sat 300 yards ahead. 3 pillboxes arranged in a triangle, mutually supporting, heavily manned. The Japanese had concentrated their remaining defenders into this final strongpoint. Jackson checked his weapon, checked his grenades, and looked at the Marines forming up around him. The last fight was about to begin. The triangular position was the strongest Japanese defensive layout on the southern peninsula. 3 pillboxes, each one covering the approaches to the other 2. Roughly 30 soldiers were divided among the bunkers, supported by a web of rifle pits and fighting holes linking the positions. Standard Marine doctrine called for preparatory bombardment before attacking a fortified complex of this size. Naval gunfire. Air support. At the very least, a mortar barrage from the regiment's mortar platoon. None of it was available. The naval guns had shifted to support operations elsewhere. Marine corsairs were striking targets on the northern ridges. Mortar teams couldn't fire without risking the Marines already moving through the area. 43 Americans would take the triangle with rifles, grenades, and one man who had already proven that concrete walls would not stop him. Jackson organized the assault in under 2 minutes. Using hand signals, he pointed out positions and split the Marines into 3 groups. Each group would attack 1 pillbox at the same time. Jackson took the center bunker, the largest one with the best fields of fire. The Marines stepped off at 8:47. They had been fighting for over an hour. The temperature had climbed past 105 degrees. Dehydration was setting in. Several men were showing signs of heat exhaustion. No one stopped. Jackson led his group of 12 Marines toward the center pillbox. The approach required crossing 60 yards of open ground. No cover. No concealment. Just volcanic rock bleached white under the Pacific sun. The Japanese opened fire when the Marines were halfway across. 2 men went down in the first 3 seconds, 1 dead, 1 wounded in the leg. The remaining 10 kept running. They had learned from Jackson's earlier assaults. Speed meant survival. Hesitation meant death. Jackson reached the bunker wall first. He pressed himself against the concrete and pulled the pin on a Japanese grenade. The Type 97 had a 4 to 5 second fuse. He counted to 2, then shoved the grenade through the firing slit and ducked. The explosion silenced 1 machine gun, but the bunker had 2 firing positions. The second gun kept firing. Marines outside were dying. Jackson pulled another grenade, counted again, and threw. Another blast. The second machine gun went quiet. Jackson climbed onto the roof, found the ventilation shaft, and jammed his bar into the opening. He emptied the magazine into the darkness below. Screams echoed up through the concrete. Then silence. The center pillbox was dead. To his left, the first assault group reached their target. A Marine corporal shoved a satchel charge through the firing slit. The explosion collapsed half the bunker's roof. Japanese survivors staggered out and were cut down by Marine rifle fire. On Jackson's right, the third group was struggling. Their pillbox had a reinforced rear entrance facing away from the Marine advance. Japanese soldiers inside were throwing grenades faster than the Americans could close the distance. Jackson didn't hesitate. He sprinted across the open ground between bunkers. Bullets kicked up coral around his boots. 1 round grazed his thigh. He kept running. He reached the third pillbox from its blind side, the same side the Marines couldn't approach because of the entrance on the opposite wall. Jackson located the ventilation shaft. He had 2 grenades left. He dropped both into the opening. The explosions killed everyone inside. 3 pillboxes destroyed in less than 4 minutes. The triangle had fallen, but Jackson was bleeding. The round that grazed his thigh had cut deeper than he realized. Blood soaked through his dungaree trousers. His left leg weakened with every step. He looked south. 3 pillboxes still stood between the Marines and complete control of the southern peninsula. Jackson had killed roughly 50 Japanese soldiers, destroyed 9 bunkers, and been wounded at least once. The logical thing to do was to stop, get medical attention, and let fresh Marines finish the job. Jackson loaded his last magazine and started walking south. A Marine sergeant grabbed his arm, pointed at the blood, then pointed back toward the aid station. Jackson pulled his arm free. 3 pillboxes remained. He wasn't finished. The 10th pillbox fell at 9:12. Jackson killed its 5 defenders with grenades dropped through the ventilation shaft. His leg was still bleeding. He tore a strip of fabric from his dungarees and wrapped it around the wound. It wasn't enough. Blood soaked through the makeshift bandage with every step. The 11th pillbox fell at 9:21. This one required help. Jackson's ammunition was gone. A Marine private named Henderson brought up a satchel charge. Jackson placed it. The explosion killed 7 Japanese soldiers. The 12th pillbox was the last. It sat on a small rise overlooking the beach where the 7th Marines had landed 3 days earlier. Since D-Day, the position had fired on Marine supply parties. Its 2 machine guns had killed at least 15 Americans. The bunker's commander had watched 11 pillboxes fall that morning. He knew he was next. Jackson approached from the northeast. His leg barely responded anymore. He dragged it more than he walked. Blood loss blurred his vision. The coral ridges shimmered in the 100-degree heat. 3 Marines followed him. They refused to let him assault the final position alone. One carried extra grenades. One carried a flamethrower. One carried a bar with ammunition to spare. The Japanese opened fire at 100 yards. The Marine with the bar returned fire. Fire, a suppressive burst that forced the enemy gunners to duck. Jackson and the other 2 Marines kept moving forward. At 50 yards, the flamethrower operator stepped ahead of them. The M2 flamethrower had an effective range of about 40 yards. He needed to get closer. Jackson provided cover. He took the bar from the supporting Marine and fired controlled bursts. The weapon slammed against his shoulder with every shot. His wounded leg gave way. He dropped to one knee and kept firing anyway. The flamethrower operator reached effective range. He squeezed the trigger and unleashed a 3-second burst. Burning fuel arced through the air and poured directly into the pillbox's firing slit. The screaming lasted less than 10 seconds. At 9:33, the 12th pillbox fell silent. Jackson collapsed against a coral boulder. His dungarees were soaked dark with blood. His hands shook from exhaustion and adrenaline. The bar rested across his lap, the barrel still hot from the final assault. In roughly 90 minutes, Private First Class Arthur Jackson had destroyed 12 Japanese pillboxes and killed approximately 50 enemy soldiers. He had shattered the southern defensive line. He had enabled his platoon's advance. He had altered the tactical situation across an entire sector of the island. Navy corpsmen reached him within minutes. They cut away his blood-soaked trousers and dressed the wound. The bullet had passed cleanly through muscle without striking bone or severing an artery. Jackson would keep his leg, and he would keep fighting. 3 days later, still limping, Jackson was back in combat. Word of his assault spread through the 7th Marines within hours. Officers who had witnessed the attack from observation posts described what they had seen. A single Marine charging positions that normally required company-level assaults. Pillboxes falling one after another. 50 Japanese soldiers dead. The regimental commander forwarded a report to division headquarters. Division sent it on to Corps. By the time Peleliu was declared secure on November 27th, Arthur Jackson's name had reached the desk of Admiral Chester Nimitz. The Medal of Honor recommendation was submitted in early October. The citation detailed every pillbox, every kill, every moment of the 90-minute assault. The paperwork moved through channels with unusual speed. On October 5, 1945, President Harry Truman stood in the White House. 13 months had passed since Peleliu. The war was over. Japan had surrendered. Arthur Jackson, now 20 years old, stood at attention as the president placed the Medal of Honor around his neck. Truman read the citation aloud. 12 pillboxes. 50 Japanese soldiers. Conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Jackson returned to Oregon after the ceremony. He had a medal. He had a limp that would never fully heal. And he carried memories that would follow him for the rest of his life. What those memories did to him over the next 7 decades would surprise nearly everyone who thought they knew the hero of Peleliu. Arthur Jackson did not speak about Peleliu for decades. He returned to Portland after the war, married, raised a family, and worked for the United States Postal Service delivering mail. His neighbors knew him as a quiet man with a slight limp. Most had no idea about the medal kept in his closet. Jackson remained in the military reserves. He transferred from the Marine Corps to the Army Reserve and continued serving through the Korean War era. He rose to the rank of captain. He trained younger soldiers. He never talked about the 12 pillboxes. In 1961, Jackson was stationed at Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba. Cold War tensions were high. Soviet influence had turned the island into hostile ground. Jackson served as a security officer tasked with monitoring potential espionage threats. On September 30th, a Cuban worker named Ruben Sabargo confronted Jackson. Sabargo had been under suspicion for passing information to Cuban intelligence. The encounter turned violent. Jackson shot and killed Sabargo in self-defense. The incident created complications. Jackson buried the body and reported the shooting to his superiors. The case became tangled in Cold War politics. Jackson requested a court-martial to officially clear his name. The Marine Corps denied the request. In 1962, he left active service. The circumstances haunted him for years. He had killed 50 men on Peleliu and received the Medal of Honor. He had killed 1 man at Guantanamo and received only silence. But time has a way of restoring perspective. Jackson continued his reserve service in the Army until 1984. He retired as a captain with 40 years of combined military service. He moved to Idaho. He began speaking publicly about his experiences. He visited schools. He spoke to veterans groups. He shared what he had learned about courage, fear, and the cost of survival. In 2011, at the age of 86, Jackson visited the USS Peleliu. The Navy had named an amphibious assault ship after the battle where he had earned his medal. Jackson walked the decks. He addressed more than 1,000 sailors and Marines assembled in the hangar bay. He told them about the 14-pound canned ham his mess sergeant had made him carry during the landing. He told them about the pillboxes. He told them about the men who never came home. He presented the ship's captain with his Medal of Honor flag, one of only 2 flags each recipient receives. The captain had it framed and placed in the ship's Hall of Heroes alongside photographs of the 8 Marines who earned the Medal of Honor at Peleliu. Jackson was the last surviving Medal of Honor recipient from that battle. On June 14, 2017, Arthur Jackson died in Boise, Idaho. He was 92 years old. Marine Corps body bearers from Bravo Company, Marine Barracks, Washington, carried his remains. Full military honors marked his burial at the Idaho State Veterans Cemetery. 50 Japanese soldiers had tried to stop one 19-year-old Marine on September 18, 1944. Every single one of them died. The Marine lived another 73 years. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor and hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to share this story with more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We rescue forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about Marines who charged concrete bunkers with nothing but rifles and grenades. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. The United States? The United Kingdom? Canada? Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us where you are. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Arthur Jackson does not disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you are helping make that happen.